Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has arrived in Germany for a relay of meetings amid the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war. Zelensky landed there for an in-person meeting with the German Chancellor, and this will be followed by a virtual meeting with other European leaders and the US President Donald Trump. The latest round of talks coming just days ahead of a critical and the first face-to-face meeting between Donald Trump and Russia's President Vladimir Putin for Ukraine peace talks. And this will be the first meeting between both leaders after Trump became president for a second term. The meeting is being held in Alaska on the 15th of August. And following the announcement of a US-Russia summit, European leaders released a joint statement welcoming the development for the peace talks, but said that Ukraine's future cannot be decided without the country's direct involvement in the peace negotiations. On the other hand, Russia has called Europe's diplomatic stance and involvement on Ukraine's behalf as, quote, insignificant. Russia's foreign ministry official accused the European Union of, quote, sabotaging US-Russia joint efforts in ending the war, and said that consultations sought by the Europeans are politically and practically insignificant. So ahead of that crucial Trump-Putin summit, we're looking at these developments, which of course will signify a very crucial time for the Russia-Ukraine war, given the kind of statements that have been made in the backdrop of that Putin-Trump summit as well. That summit, remember, is to be taking place in Alaska on the 15th of August. Just days to go. And with us on the broadcast from Berlin is Ben Aris, who is the founder and editor-in-chief of BNE IntelliNews and also the former Moscow bureau chief for the Daily Telegraph. Thanks for being here. I have to ask you first for your assessment of the present situation, the way things stand right now, and the stance that has been taken by Europe and the developments that we are seeing in the run-up to that Trump-Putin summit.
Well, the situation is slightly confused in so much as Trump and Putin have agreed to have this meeting on their own, and Ukraine and Europe have been ejected in so much as the fate of Ukraine is going to be decided behind closed doors without participation of Zelensky in particular. Europe's been pushing for his involvement. Trump has said, no, I'm going to meet Putin first. We're going to do some sort of deal. And then after that, there may be a trilateral meeting between Trump, Putin, and Zelensky. Europe here is also being sidelined, and they're very frustrated. They want to be involved. They have very clear ideas. They're insisting, first and foremost, that Putin agrees to an unconditional ceasefire, stops all the hostilities, the fighting, before negotiations start. And Trump and Putin are doing it the other way around. They're going to have a deal, they're going to do the negotiations, and then the ceasefire will only become follow-on later. So I think Europe is very frustrated, and there's been a lot of diplomatic activity in just the last few days. There's going to be a call, I think today or tomorrow, between the heads of the European leaders and Trump, where they're going to put forward their position, what they would like to see, a ceasefire. And the White House, I think, has made it fairly clear that they're just going to ignore everything that Europe says, and Trump is going to go and sit in front of Putin. And he says he can tell in the first 2 minutes whether Putin is willing to do some sort of deal. The details of which are very unclear, but Trump has talked explicitly about land swaps. So it remains to be seen what comes out of this.
Right. I also want to get in your reaction specifically on what the Russian Foreign Ministry official has said, accusing the European Union of sabotaging US-Russia joint efforts in ending the war, and saying that consultations sought by the Europeans are politically and practically insignificant.
Well, they're trying to undermine Europe's position. And as I say, I think the Kremlin sees that Europe is interfering and is actually detrimental to their position. I mean, the Kremlin is actually quite happy to talk to Trump. And Trump has shown himself all the way down the line since this whole business started in February in Riyadh, that he's willing to do a deal. And moreover, that Trump is willing to concede many of the demands that Putin wants. No NATO for Ukraine, also the end of financial support, and particularly recognition of sovereignty over the territories that Russia controls. And Trump has indicated that he's willing to accept all of those things, whereas Europe and Ukraine are definitely not. So it's in the Kremlin's interest to make sure that they drive a wedge between the White House and Europe, and Trump is not particularly enamored with Europe in so much as he's withdrawn the support from Ukraine, but said if Europe is willing to pay for the arms going forward, it can. So as far as Trump's concerned, they're a customer. They're a cash cow which can be milked in order to sell weapons to Ukraine and get Europe to pay for it. So I think, Lavrov and the foreign ministry have been very clear on this, and they trying to feed Trump's paranoia about what Europe's up to by saying it's undermining. And I think some of that will hit home. I mean, I think Trump is actually open to it.
Right. And before we let you go, a quick word also on your expectations at this point. With Zelensky in Berlin and that virtual summit to take place with Trump as well, but also that Putin-Trump summit lined up for Friday. So given where things stand right now, to that summit, which is, of course, just days away now, crucial time period for all the sides at this point.
I think you have to look at the motivations here, that Trump is going into this meeting with one goal: to end the war. He wants to be seen as a deal maker. Increasingly, he wants to be seen as a peacemaker. He just did a peace deal, a very significant one, between Azerbaijan and Armenia. He's also claims to have brought some African conflicts to a halt. Various people are talking about putting him up for a Nobel Peace Prize. And he would love to bring the Ukrainian war to an end. And that's his main goal. And which I think is why he's willing to give Putin all these concessions in order to close the deal. From Putin's side, it's a bit more complicated. However, Putin has three goals here. He wants to ensure for Russia's security that Ukraine goes back to neutrality, never joins NATO. He also needs to get the sanctions lifted. There's some 30,000, an extreme number of sanctions on Russia. And again, Trump is the man to do the deal with to get those lifted. If you wait to the next president, I think those things will be locked in for generations. And so for Putin, it's very important to do that. And finally, the Russian economy is really starting. I mean, it's not going to collapse, but it's very painful. And so he's not made any progress. He's captured 20% of Ukrainian territory. They're not capturing any large amount more. It's basically stuck. And so there's no point continuing. And so I think he's also had enough, and he would like to get out of it and go back to business. And so he's trying to get those things from Trump, which is why this is a two-way conversation, because Putin could achieve all those goals, and Trump needs to squeeze some sort of concession out of Putin. And then they will take that deal as a fait accompli and present it to Zelensky. And Trump will say, take it or leave it. If you don't take it, then I'm dropping all support, all weapons, all money for Ukraine, and you can fight on to the bitter end. And that's really not an option for Zelensky either.
All right, we're leaving it there for the moment. Thanks very much for being here.
My pleasure.
To stay up to speed with the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.